Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. In the last lesson, we added hit markers to our game, and in this one, we're going to be adding to our fancy pantsy UI and adding some cool RPG-like damage numbers to the screen. So, let's get started, okay? Let's go over to our interfaces folder, and let's add a new interface. So, let's go to blueprints and blueprint interface, and let's call this, should keep the name same, BPI underscore damage numbers. Now we could technically do this off of a custom event, but in our game, okay, if you think about it, if you were to want to add to this and you were to want to create a whole bunch of different enemies, let's say, doing it off of an interface would be pretty easy, because then you could just keep creating these events, or these functions, essentially, that we'll be creating inside of here. So, admittedly, could do it just by making an event, but that's not how we roll right here, okay? Because I want to create this project in a way that you can easily add and implement to it, so that's why we're doing it this way. So let's change the name of our default function and call this damage numbers. And we want to have 3 inputs on here. We want to have one be a float, one be a vector, and then one to be a boolean. And let's call the float damage. Let's call the vector impact location. And let's call the boolean is headshot, like that. That's all we need to do in there. All right, and then we can scroll down inside of our BP enemy, and let's go to our class settings and add this interface. So let's go BPI damage numbers, compile, and then we can go event damage numbers. So now we have that called right here. We can start doing some stuff off of it. But we don't have anything created. We don't have our damage numbers actually created yet. So we're going to have to do that first before we can run off of this. All right, so let's go into UI. Let's create a new widget, and we'll call this damage numbers, like that. And we can open this on up. All right. So the first thing we want to do is let's go ahead and set this screen size to be desired. And on our canvas panel, let's put a size box. This size box, I'm just going to call it size box. I'm going to make this into a variable. And I'm going to set this to be 100 by 100, like that. And we can just anchor it. Ooh, no. Oh gosh, anchoring it screwed that up, didn't it? I guess this really doesn't matter. Oh, it did. Well, that's awkward. Okay, well, negative 50, negative 50, 100, 100. It really doesn't matter. Okay, I just like seeing that thing in the center. Okay, now let's add some text to our size box. Put that on top of the size box, and we'll call this something like, oh, it didn't. Oh, it did. Okay. Damage text. What is Unreal doing right now? It's like not showing my edits, but yet also making the edits. Okay. Okay, Unreal, weird. Let's go ahead and make damage text a variable. Let's align it in the center like this. And let's have it be a default text of like some number, like 99 or something like that. Then we have our fonts added. We're going to make this one the bold font, like this. We're going to make it of a size of, I don't really like it to be that big, so I'm going to make it like 18. Feel free to make this look however you want. This is all just artsy, fancy, pantsy stuff right here that I'm doing right now. Okay, for our shadow offset, I want to add a little bit of a shadow. So we're going to do 2 by 2. And for the shadow color, we actually need to make this show up because our A value is set to be nothing right now. I'm going to make it like 0.5 or something like that. And you know what? I'm happy with it. You can change the justification or all these weird settings, but in a nutshell, that's what I want. Okay. So now we need to create an animation for this and call it damage applied or something like that. And we're going to give this an effect to sort of pop in and then pop back out. All right. We're going to have it like zoom in, zoom back down, and then kind of float upward a little bit. Let me just think about what to do for a second here. The first thing I want to do is mess with the scale. So let's go ahead, make sure damage text is selected and go down to scale. Let's get the X and the Y, and it might disappear. So we want this to be 0 at first. And then after like 0.25, let's make it like 1.5 its size. All right, and then at 0.5, let's make it, add some keyframes, make it its true size at 1 and 1, so it's doing like this sort of thing. And then, you know what, that's it. It's actually all we need to do for the scale. Okay, so that's cool. You know, I was thinking about like having it sort of fade in. If you want it to kind of like fade in here, be my guest. Like I said, I don't want to spend like a ridiculous amount of time on the widgets and like doing all of that, because you're gonna make it how you want it to make it look anyway. All right. The only other thing that I want to do is I want to mess with the translation in the X and Y. So let's add some keyframes here like this. And then let's just go off to like 1.25. And I think we only need the X. Yeah, we only need the Y, so we can actually delete the X ones. And then let's set this to be, we'd have to move it maybe like -10. So now it will play and kind of like move up like that. Oh, we do need it to fade in and out. Yes. We need to get it to go away. All right. So yeah, we will need to do that. Okay. But we have our movement sort of thing down. Now let's go to our, we will, since we added a shadow, that's how Unreal works. You need to do this with the shadow color and just the normal color and opacity. So these two things are going to be the same thing, these same A values. So by default, we can just make this be 0. By the time we hit 0.25, let's make it 1 so that the whole thing is loaded in. At 1 second, let's just add the keyframes again to make sure that these are set to be 1. And then at 1.25, let's make the A value 0. So now if we play back this whole animation, it does that. All right, nothing too crazy. Like I said, feel free to go crazy with adding keyframes and screwing around with a whole bunch of things. Anything with this label, you can change. You can make a keyframe and change that value over time. All right. But we're not going to waste a whole bunch of time on that. All right. So let's go off of event construct over here. And let's grab the damage text. Oh, you know what? We need to create a couple of variables in this. So let's make one and call it damage and make it of float. And let's create one and say is headshot and make it Boolean. And let's instance editable and expose both of these on spawn. The reason we did that is because we created them here and we just want to link those two things up eventually. Okay. So let's grab our damage. This is going to be what our current print string is doing, how much damage we're doing. One thing that we want to do currently is if we don't want our numbers to show decimal points. So with how the math works, it's possible that we could do like 7.5 damage or something like that. We don't want damage numbers to show up as 7.5, even though that might be more accurate. So what we can do to floats is we can pull out this node and say floor. And what this will do is this will prevent decimals. It's kind of like rounding down. All right. So our damage text, we want to set set text, get this widget set text, and then plug this in like that. So it's gonna add this little extra node here, and then we'll plug that in. So what this is doing is we're making whatever this damage number is, which is nothing in this blueprint, but we will link it up to damage in here, and this value that's controlled in our weapon blueprints. We'll link those two things up. We'll make sure that it doesn't show any decimal places, and then we will floor it, as in get rid of the decimals, because we don't want to see that. Okay, now let's get our damage text again, and I want to grab is headshot. So I want to change the color of the damage text if we get a headshot, because that's kind of fun. So we can pull out a node that literally is called select color. All right, and then out of the return value, we can say make slate color, like this. Then off of damage text, let's say set color and opacity, and you'll see we have this new option for a slate color, and we will drop that in there like that. All right, and so now all we need to do is have one for A and have one for B. Now A is going to be if this is true. So I'm going to make this, before I made it yellow, but I already have this red color. So I'll just make it red. All right. And then I'll have non-headshots be white or something like that. I like yellow, but I don't really feel like, I don't know, you can make that whatever color you'd like for your headshots. All right. The last thing we want to do is we want to take our animation, damage applied, and we want to play said animation. All right, so we'll play your animation, and then we want to have a delay. And then we want to remove this from parent, which is getting rid of the widget. The reason we have this delay node here is to prevent removing our widget from the screen before the animation plays. So this will run in like a 1 frame, like instantaneously. So even though we will be technically playing the animation, we'll also be removing the whole widget from the screen at the same time. So we need to have a delay. We'll say get end time for our animation. So we'll just get the end time for that animation, which is 1.25 seconds. And then we'll delay for that amount of time before we remove our whole widget from the screen. All right. So that's all we need to do with this. So there we go. Now let's go back to our enemy, and let's go underneath this event here. All right, and the first thing we want to do is we want to create a widget. The widget we want to create is damage numbers, and since we have those variables as exposing on the spawn, we can now see them right here. So we'll just plug them in like that, all nice and stuff. All right. Now, impact location. This is going to be the location where we want the numbers to actually show up. Now, we need to add some level of randomization to this because if you're shooting the gun, you're typically not moving it around enough. So like the numbers will overlap. All right. Let's just be simple here. So we need to add some sort of randomization to this location here. So let's start by getting the controller of our character. And there's this really fancy node called project world location to widget position. It's going to be asking us for a location. So let's put that in there like that. That's all we need for that. Now it has a screen position of a vector 2D structure. We're gonna break this. So now we get an X and a Y coordinate on our screen. All right. So now we have to do some fancy math. So for the X, let's add. We're gonna want to add negative 100 to this. And then we're going to pull off this and add another float plus a float. So we're gonna add this negative 100 to a random float in range like this. And then I'm going to do negative 25 as the minimum and the maximum as 150. Okay. Then off of the y, we're going to want to add more floats. And this one is going to be plus negative 100 again. And then we're just gonna copy and paste these two. This is controlling our x and our y random locations. The minimum for the y, which is up and down, is gonna be 0 and 50, like this. And then last but not least, we just need to add these two things together. Now, I spent a decent amount of time fiddling with these numbers. This is what I feel like creates a good random spread to me, in my opinion. So if you think about this math, like we're adding negative 100 to, so the lowest number that this can be for our x, which is this back and forth, is negative 125 to positive 150. So like that's the most amount it can like spread out in this way, the numbers. And then this can either be as low as negative 100, negative 100 plus 0 is negative 100, or negative 50. So that's the most it can go in this direction. So you'll get this sort of cross section like that. If you want to make the potential minimum number like negative 200, so you'd get a negative 100 plus potentially negative 100, you can do that. But these are the numbers that I felt were decent enough, right? So what we did, actually we don't want to add these together. We broke the vector, so now we want to make these floats back into a vector. And we want to make vector 2D like this, because this is just a 2D plane on our widget here. And then we're going to set render translation. Why does no do this to me? We might need to get, let's go ahead and get our size box. There we go. Give me the goofy, stupid name. That's why we needed to make this a variable. If you can't get this, just make it into a variable or select size box and just set to variable. It might work out of here now. Set render, there we go. Set render translation. And then the translation is that. So we're actually changing the location of our size box. And remember, our text is a child of the size box. So wherever the size box goes, the numbers go. Let's just plug that in like such, like that. And then we can pull out of here and say add to viewport. Plug that in. So kind of a goofy looking script, not gonna lie. In between videos, since I don't want to make this one super long, so I'll probably add the comment boxes and stuff in between and then just kind of show you what I did. The last thing that we want to do is we want to actually call this event. So right in here we have some goofy print strings. This is in our event enemy take damage. Okay, so we haven't added any sort of enemy death type of thing, but we will do that in the next video. For our false branch, meaning that we're not dead, okay, we want to call damage numbers, which is this. Now we're calling it, and it's asking for that information. Alrighty. And this should be rather simple. So damage, we want this to be not the damage from here. All right, that'll be incorrect. We want to get the calculated damage, which is resetting that number based on whatever body part we hit, essentially with whatever weapon we're holding. All right, let's take our hit result. We can pull it out of here actually and break it like that. For impact location, we want to plug that into impact normal. All right, and then the last thing we need is this is headshot. So let's grab out of our physical material and we'll get the surface type. All right, and we have one named head. So what we can do is we can say equals, and we'll say, does this equal the head? If it is, then it will be a headshot, and that will return true. All right, so that is all that we need to do for that. So if we hop in and we play, here is the moment of truth. So if we do this, shoot, we have 16. The head should be 20 and yellow, or red. There we go. 10, 14, 6, hand should be 4. There we go. 16. I guess I just missed. And there we go, I'm dead. And it didn't pump out numbers, I guess, for the final death below. But that's okay, because it has the red hit markers that does it for us. We don't need to really know. Whoa, why didn't that work? Did it not work when we were far away? Maybe I'm just blind or something like that. That was very strange, though. Is it not working from a certain distance? What? What is going on here? Okay, so admittedly, I have never seen something like that happen before. I have absolutely no idea why it's only showing within a certain radius like that. Because it's working the same exact way that the hit marker is. So it really shouldn't be happening. So it might be some sort of internal issue. Because that is just really strange. I have no idea. So if it might just be some weird glitch, it might be something with my settings. The script is exactly the same in this blueprint and the previous project, so I guess people can let me know if they're experiencing the same type of thing, but that's a very strange little thing, because like I said, the hit marker is working the same exact way, and it's still popping up no matter, depending on the distance. So if I find some sort of solution to it, then I will let you know. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep the train moving forward, because it might just be a weird Unreal sort of bug that doesn't have anything to do with us, or it might be just be some weird setting, something that I altered that you're not even experiencing at all, because it seems like all the bugs I've had so far are just because of me, not even because of anything else. So it might just be on my end, I mean, being a goof, like putting the wrong physical material on the head and stuff like that. But that's the video. That is how you do damage numbers. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.